All right, guys. I just want to let you know that I am going to have YouTube Premium content. It's going to be released on my Discord for all Twitch subscribers and Patreon supporters. Will have access to this. If you join the Discord, that can be found from my Twitch channel at !Discord. The videos are going to be posted in the exclusive content channel, and you'll always be able to watch videos as soon as they're made. And the normal videos for YouTube will still be coming. We're still going to be doing one video a day. It's not going to change what the general population gets to see, but we are going to be doing more advanced as well as more specific videos that will be released on top of that for anyone who's interested in supporting it, as well as getting a little bit more out of the channel than the rest of the people. So please note that because of the limitation of one video per day on YouTube for the way I want to do my channel, it's just going to be based on excess. So it's going to be anywhere between 4 to 7 videos a week on top of the normal that we plan to be releasing from my YouTube. And they're going to be all types of things. We're going to have a set amount of coaching sessions, set amount of replay analysis, all that kind of stuff to be released on YouTube. And the rest of it will go on the premium content. So just wanted to let you guys know. And all content will be available through the Discord.
Banana slam jam.
Okay, guys, we're in the middle of a coaching session right now, but he really feels like he wants this. I talked about it in the past, but I don't have a specific video on this. So I figure it's best to probably put a little segment where him as my coaching student, as well as anyone else wondering what is the order of objectives in Dota. And I want to say that in general, there's always exceptions to Dota. There's no laws in this game, but there are rules that commonly impact the objectives that are being taken. So for the sake of this video, this isn't going to be a why video. This is going to be a what video. What happens in the game, and then on your own, when you're watching professional matches, when you're watching your own games, you can just try to figure out the why yourself, because the why would require a much longer video than 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and lay this out. We're going to tell you that the map is reflected on Radiant. So what I mean is everything I tell you that's for Dire, I say bottom tier 1 for Dire, is top tier 1 from Radiant's perspective. So let's just assume the map is mirrored so we're going to be coming from the perspective of Dire this game, or for the sake of this video. The order of objectives is as follows. Mid and bottom tier 1 are almost always first. The only exception to this is when the carry wins his lane really hard and takes the top tower at like 5 to 8 minutes into the game. That's pretty much the only exception to that one. And that's not really an objective your team's like grouping up for. It's just an objective that naturally happens. So it's bottom or mid tower. These are, when I say objectives, this is stuff that the entire team has to worry about. And it's stuff that's going to be like a gank that's leading into it. It's going to be bringing 3 or 4 heroes to push the tower, all that kind of stuff. So if I had to give an exact order, it would be bottom tier 1 into mid tier 1. So what happens is you take bottom tier 1. What usually happens is one of your farming heroes plays this area on the map. That person's going to constantly push in bottom while the rest of your team plays around here. Maybe somebody's going to defend top, but we're talking about the objectives your team is trying to get. So you're going to have one hero pushing bottom, and then eventually your next objective is going to be mid tier 1. Every time you ask yourself about an objective, it is a very straightforward question, guys. We have already told you what the next objective is going to be. You have to ask yourself what levels and items and cooldowns your team needs to take that objective. That is the only thing you have to figure out. It is much harder to do that than I make it out to be. But once you've established the next objective, just ask yourself when you think you can take it. So we take bottom tier 1. Next is mid tier 1. At that point on Dire, you have 2 choices. You either take the bottom tier 2 or you take Roche. The bottom tier 2 helps you secure the outpost before 20 minutes, in this case especially, or before a 10-minute mark interval. But obviously we're talking about 7.27 in case the patch does change eventually where that doesn't matter anymore. So a lot of it has to do with whether or not it's the tier 2 bottom or it's Roche, is whether or not your heroes are really good at pressuring towers. If your heroes suck at pressuring towers, something I actually dealt with in a recent coaching session, say you have an Ursa or something like that, Roche is probably your better objective. You also have to consider, if you go for this bottom tier 2, that the opponent might just take Roche. So the two factors that kind of decide this for me is how well my team takes towers and if we're worried about the opponent team taking Roche because we're on the bottom half of the map. So it's either tier 2 or Roche. Make your best guess for which one you think you should do first, and then ask yourself how you get it. So once you get Roche, that means when we talk about the dead lane concept, guys, we play 2 lanes. People seem to overcomplicate or oversimplify whichever direction you go, the dead lane. The dead lane concept means that if you play 3 lanes, once you start worrying about objectives, the opponent's going to see 1 hero in each lane, and they're going to go, wow, the enemy team is separated. Let's kill one of them. So you can't play 3 lanes. So if you're playing based off proximity, right? We talk about not getting separated on the map. That's why you're not able to play 3 lanes. Mid lane is pretty much never the dead lane. Are there exceptions? Sure, but it's usually not mid because of proximity to the other 2 lanes. So if we're playing for bottom tier 2, guess what? We're playing mid and bottom. If we're playing for Roche, we're playing mid and top. Pretty straightforward. Great stuff. If your team can get on that same page, really cool. So after we take Roche, or mid, if we take this tier 2, there's pretty much nothing for us to play for anymore, right? Down here, there's no more objectives. We're not just going to go tier 3, right? That's crazy. Why would we do that? That would require a very niche situation where the opponent's so far behind and you have like a Lycan or a Visage or some shit that just kills the buildings. So, after we've taken this tier 2, let's assume we took that direction. We say, okay, well, the next objective is to take Roche. What do we need to take Roche? We need this little triangle right here. We need this nice little triangle control. So what are we going to do? We're going to stay bottom until we are strong enough to take over the top part of the map. Ask yourself, what items, what cooldowns, what abilities, what levels do we need to take over this part of the map so we can take Roche? So, if we choose to go for the Roche route, then you just have to ask yourself, are we playing top and mid or top and bottom? Mid and bottom. Doesn't really matter at that point because the objectives are all towers. They're all equal. At that point, just ask yourself, would you rather be top and mid or bottom and mid? So that's a pretty straightforward game plan for the objectives. Because it's not as clear-cut as I made it sound at the beginning, we'll quickly talk from Dire's perspective. So for the first 2 towers, or from Radiant's perspective, for the first 2 towers, it's the same thing. It really, usually you'll take top tier 1, and sometimes it's mid tier 1. A lot of times it does based off of who's in the game. So like if you have a mid Death Prophet or a DK, it's more likely to be this tower. But if your offlaner's like a Beastmaster or your carry's like a Terrorblade, it's more likely to be the opponent's safe lane tower. A lot of it has to do with which hero on your team is pushing that decides which one of these towers goes first. This tower, once again, only really dies when the carry is super farmed, super far ahead, and the offlane's so weak early they can't defend it. Now that we've taken this tower and this tower, because we say it's this one and then this one, or vice versa, it's now this tower and Roche. But the beauty of playing on Radiant is they're on the same part of the map. Woo! So, basically, there's no circumstances where you are ahead on Radiant that you would ever go bottom. It just makes no sense. No objectives. 2 objectives. Crazy. So, on Radiant, if you're ahead, you pretty much always play top and mid. The only exception is if your team's really not strong enough to take Roche. And so if you're not strong enough to take Roche, then that's not really an effective objective for you to be threatening. So if you're like, we're really far ahead, and we don't really want this tier 2, and we don't want Roche, what's the other option? We invade the triangle! Woo! So for Dire, the main choice is between tier 2 and Roche. And the Roche kind of comes with invading the triangle. Okay, those 2 things go hand in hand when you're Dire. When you're Radiant, you're choosing between threatening Roche and tier 2 at the same time, or invading their safest farm on the map of the triangle. Those are the 2 choices you have. So once you take over this part of the map as Radiant, if you chose to do that over getting Roche, you're doing the same thing. Why did we choose this over Roche? Because we weren't strong enough to Roche yet. Whether or not that's because our heroes aren't very good at Roche, or whether or not that's because we're scared if we go into Roche, the opponent can just contest us. Even though they're losing, putting ourselves in the pit is a very dangerous thing. So we might put ourselves in a situation we're not strong enough to handle just yet. So we take over this part of the map because it's where the opponent likes to farm, and we're thus then constricting their farm. If you're on Dire, it's just more impactful to take 2 lanes on this side of the map because even though you're not constricting their farm as much, you are farming 2/3 of the map, which is really nice for you. So, lastly, when we wrap up this quick concept, all it comes down to when it comes to these two decisions you make after you take the tier 1 and mid and bottom, or mid and top here, is what do our heroes do best? And the learning process for each of you in terms of the why is what heroes do certain objectives better and why, what type of skill sets are required to get these objectives done, and you'll start noticing patterns. You can watch pro games, you can make guesses, and it's awesome process that even I still learn about when I'm watching Pro Dota. So, that's it.